Welcome to Remnants of a Sound Blast. This is episode 12. And today I want to step away from doing my favorite guitar series and do a video based on the importance of rock magazines, especially coming out of the late 80s and getting into music. This was a really important thing for me to have these magazines. And I wanted to get your take on this as well. Do you still collect magazines, or do you just get your information from Google? I know that's kind of easy for a lot of people to do that these days, to go on the internet and find out all of your information. But back in the day, I can't stress this enough, back in the day when there was no such thing as internet, the only way that you got to see your favorite bands or get any kind of information on them was from either seeing them on MTV, reading the liner notes and the pictures inside the cassette or the CD or album that you bought from them, or the rock magazines. Back then when I started collecting these magazines, I want to say 86, 87, or maybe a little bit later, I would buy a magazine if it caught my eye. I would take it home. I would put on some music. I had music playing in my room 24/7. And I would just look through these magazines and just learn and study these bands and get all the information that I needed from that. Like I say, the radio would be on constantly. That's how I knew so much about these bands. I mean, within the first 2 or 3 seconds of a song, it got to the point where I could tell you the name of the band, the name of the song, what year the album came out, the album that it was from, the band members' names, probably the lyrics to the song, etc., etc., etc. I mean, my room was full of much more than this. Concert posters, memorabilia. I had lyrics to Pink Floyd songs written on my wall in pen. My mom was so cool about that and so understanding. I guess she was just like, oh well, it could be worse, you know. I guess she figured my son could be into drugs or going to jail and getting in trouble and this and that, which I never was that type of person. Just music was my thing. I was obsessed with music, and I still am. So at that time, late 80s, early 90s, I would collect these magazines and just get into my music. I was totally a fanatic about, you know, Zeppelin and Rush and Black Sabbath and Pink Floyd and Iron Maiden and just Metallica and a bunch of other bands. And so that was my thing. So what I'm going to show you now is my collection that I have left from Hurricane Katrina. I used to have much more, but I'd like your thoughts on this as well. And I'm going to stop and pause a few times through and talk about maybe a few of the covers, or if I remember getting this particular magazine, this copy for a reason. But I can't stress enough how important these magazines were back in the day. This was one of your only ways to get information on your favorite bands. So here we go. I'm going to start off with, actually I'm going to start off with the very first few magazines that I remember buying when I was 13, 14, or 15 years old. And this one is from July of 1988. So I was almost 15. So here you go. Led Zeppelin Lives. And this was Metal Muscle was the magazine. And this is all Zeppelin in here. Zepp Gear, band history, the song remains the same, blah, 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 blah. And when I was, you know, that age, 14, and I was into this band so heavy, pretty much anything that was Zeppelin related, I would buy it. Here's one from, it says Winter of 1989, Hit Parader. Legends of Heavy Metal. That's pretty cool. Kiss, Ozzy, Aerosmith. What's that at the bottom? Motley Crue, Zeppelin in the middle. There's a bunch of different bands. Metallica, Hendrix, Guns N' Roses, Deep Purple, Bon Jovi, AC/DC. You can read everything. That's awesome. I love having this old stuff. I remember what I did with this magazine and the one before it. I clipped out a bunch of photos from in here, which I wish I would have kept now, but I cut out a few photos and hung them on my wall because, like I say, my room was full of pictures. Posters, pictures of bands. That's some Deep Purple. Pretty cool stuff. So winter of 1989. Here's another one. What's this from? This is from July of 89. Another Metal Muscle. Greats of Heavy Metal, Top 10. Metallica, Aerosmith, Zeppelin, Kiss, Guns N' Roses. This was hot stuff back in the day. This was like the shit, as they say. Here's one, another Metal Muscle from May of '91. This was kind of the verge where hair metal was kind of on its way out, its decline. So you probably didn't see too many more magazines like this around 1990, 1991, 92. Then alternative grunge came in and kind of kicked all the hair metal stuff to the side. So this is probably one of the last ones you'd see with, what is that, Slaughter? Trickster. Oh, Slaughter and Trickster at the top. I never was real big fans of either band, but I definitely remember them. Now what I'm going to show you is something that a guy did. He did a cartoon series on Led Zeppelin. And it starts off with the Yardbirds. You can see that. And this is a really, really intricate comic book. I mean, this guy did a fantastic job with not only the history, but the drawings as well. And this is part 1 of 5. I believe I have all 5 somewhere, but I picked this up probably in Seattle when I was going to visit my son when he was 3 or 4 years old in the late mid-90s or so. Guitar World. Look, I still have the wrapper. 40th anniversary of Led Zeppelin 1. That's pretty cool that I kept this. So this is preserved. I'm going to open this up and see what it looks like. Might be the same thing as the cover. Oh wow, that's cool. That magazine's in mint condition. There's not a scratch or a bent corner on it anywhere. What is this from? March of '09. I'll put that back in the wrapper later. I like to keep all my stuff pretty nice and neat. Rolling Stone, The Return of Zeppelin. This must have been around the time of the O2 concert in 2007, right after they did that. There was a real big buzz in the air about Zeppelin getting back and touring the world after they did that one-off for Ahmet Ertegun in December of '07, and I was one of those people who definitely thought that they were going to tour. I'm sad to say that they didn't do that. That would have been totally awesome, but hey, at least we still have the one show documented, and it was great. Here's one from December of '07, another one. Like I said, there was a big buzz at the time right after they did that show. So, you know, any music shop or supermarket or like a Barnes & Noble or what have you, a bookstore, you know, there was Zeppelin magazines everywhere at that time because everybody knew they were going to make money off of that story. And again, like I say, everybody thought that they were going to tour. So, you know, you had a lot of interviews and pictures coming out. But I tried to stay away, you know, from buying the same old stuff. You know, the stores would be processed by different magazines and stuff. And it's still that way. I'll buy something if it catches my eye, if it's something I've never seen before or something out of the blue. But for the most part, I'm kind of limited and a little bit more picky now than I was back then, where, you know, back 20 years ago or whatever, I would just buy anything that I saw that looked good. But most of those stories have been told over and over and over again, so I tend to not buy as many magazines as I did unless I say, like I say, it's something that I've never seen before. Here's another one, guitar. You can see I got a lot of Zeppelin stuff, but you know, I have a few other things along the way. I'm surprised I have this many left. I'm pretty happy to see how many that I was able to save. This is from Mojo. What year is this from? December of 2012. Okay, so that tells me this came out right around the time that the official release concert was released from the O2. They did the concert in '07, but the official DVD wasn't released until 2012. Q Magazine, Led Zeppelin. Here's a cool one from March of '94. Eddie Van Halen and Jimmy Page on the front cover. It also has Dream Theater, Metallica, Welcome Home Sanitarium, one of my favorite Metallica songs. This is the tablature. So if you know anything about these rock magazines, you know, they would do different interviews and articles on all of these different guys, these bands, these guitar players. And usually they would come with some kind of tablature, 4 or 5 different songs that you could learn. And some of them, if you're lucky enough, this one has it. Transcriptions include bass lines. That's what I was going to say. So you have the guitar that you could learn from it, and also the bass line. So that's pretty cool. And that's another thing. You could go on YouTube or whatever now and just watch a guy play, and sooner or later, if you coordinated enough and you're playing that instrument, you're going to catch on pretty quick, because you can actually see what he's doing too. Back in the day, there was no such thing. You would get a tablature book, and you had to figure out what is he playing. You couldn't see his fingers. You're just looking at a book with notes. So it was more of a struggle back then to learn your instrument, to learn about bands, and that's why I think I hold a lot of this stuff so close to my heart, is because it took effort and work into learning about these bands. Again, like I say, the only way you knew about these bands was through MTV, or if they had a picture or liner notes inside the disc or the cassette that you bought, or the magazines. That was pretty much your three ways. Also, there was a thing called BMG Music Club and Columbia House Music Club that you could buy like 10 or 20 CDs for like 2 cents or something crazy, and then they would charge you a bunch of money for the shipping and handling. But I got a lot of my first CDs and cassettes that way. So the little BMG catalogs that they would send you in the mail, they would tell you a lot of information about the bands too, and so I remember learning about a lot of my favorite bands that way and seeing pictures of them too. But the main thing was these magazines. There's one, guitar, Jimmy Page. Let me see what year that was from. August of '95. And this one looks like it's all about Jimmy Page in here. Yeah, pretty much. Here's a cool one. July of 2000. Jimmy Page with the Black Crowes. I remember when that happened. They released that album called Live at the Greek. So that was probably right around that time period. Another '07, Zeppelin from the Reunion. I have a lot of those. Rolling Stone. That's probably from, August 10th, '06. Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin Rising. His most in-depth interview ever. The Historic Reunion Tour. See, this was right around the time too. January of '08. The buzz was still strong at this point, y'all. This went on for almost all of '08. Everybody kept speculating that Zeppelin was going to reunite. Oh man, here you go. Alex Lifeson. That's my boy right there. Don't get too much better than this guy. Not much at all, in my opinion. I remember when I bought this, my wife and I were coming back from our honeymoon cruise, and I was sitting in the airport, and it was going to be a long, long wait to fly back to New Orleans. And I went into the little shop that they had, and I bought this. That's from March of '06. And it's got some cool stuff about him in here. This is all Alex Lifeson, mostly. Yep. A few other guys. Mojo. The Who. Pink Floyd and Zeppelin. Gotta love it. Back cover. Classic stuff. What's this from? Doesn't say. But this was printed in England. Mojo's from England. Most of those I probably got from like a Barnes & Noble or a Borders or something like that. This one I remember I bought in Seattle when I was waiting to pick up my son to bring back to New Orleans. I distinctly remember picking this up. This has Page and Plant in here from the '98 tour. And that was what was big at the time. Smashing Pumpkins and alternative rock was the thing. I love looking at these and kind of reminiscing. It takes you back to that time period. I remember most of this pretty good. Like, what was big at the time as far as, radio play and MTV and stuff. This is from January of '08. Look at that lineup. Don't get too much better than that. That's classic. Steven Tyler, Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, Tony Iommi, the riff master. Tony Iommi. I love seeing these guys together. That's cool. It's like, you know, your favorite artist and you see they all get along and they all buddies and everything. I mean, it makes you feel good, you know. This is a cool one. 25th anniversary guitar. Look at that. And if you open it up, I believe it's got a picture of the guy, what's his name? Robert DeLeo or something DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots. I love that guy. I love Stone Temple Pilots. I'm going to do a video on alternative rock one day, and Stone Temple will definitely be in there. Stone Temple, Alice in Chains, Faith No More, Soundgarden. That was my 4. I never was a real big Nirvana fan, and I never was a huge Pearl Jam fan. I liked the songs, but they just didn't grab me like those other 4 that I mentioned. Record collector. It's another Jimmy Page. You can see I got a lot of Jimmy Page stuff. God's sakes. I'm going to go a little bit quicker. This is December of 07. Led Zeppelin 3. And on the back is Mothership. So they were, this was probably right around the release for that, you know. What does that say? 12/11/07. Here's another one dedicated to Jimmy Page. I remember buying this one. What is this, early 90s? Yep. December of 93. So I was 20 years old when I bought this. Heavy into music. Heavy into Zeppelin. Still. Definitely back then. Here's a cool one. April of 92. A few different bands. Guns N' Roses. You got Zeppelin Tablature for Communication Breakdown. Soundgarden. Love Soundgarden. Outshined. Great song. Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin Lives. That's one dedicated solely to all Zeppelin. Most of the time, you know, they'll have some other bands slipped in, but I think this one's pretty much all Zeppelin. That's a cool shot. That's a cool picture. Look at that. It's got the double neck inside. So that's, you know, these magazines, they come with little treats like this. You know, they come with a little treat. You might see a cool poster inside that you want to hang up or frame. I did all that stuff. I used to take them out of the magazines, like clip out the little pictures and hang them on my wall and write down who it was, or just make a collage of a few different bands with some poster board and stuff. I mean, I was so into this stuff, you have no idea. June of 1999. Wow, look at this. The greatest year in rock, possibly so. 1969, definitely a lot of great albums released that year. A defining moment for rock and roll. This year pretty much changed the face of rock and roll with that album alone. Definitely, that was breakthrough. Zeppelin's debut. Not another debut like that, but I mean, look at this list. You got Tommy, you got the Beatles, you know, you got the Stooges, you got King Crimson, you got Zeppelin 2. I mean, you got, what is that, Blind Faith, if I'm reading that right? I might have to check that out and read that again. I forgot about everything that was in there. Here's a bass player magazine with the one and only John Paul Jones. Don't get too much better than this guy either. Master musician. Master musician. Okay, modern drummer. Jason Bonham, Led Zeppelin. That must have been right after the reunion show in 07. Let me guess. February of 08. There you go. The buzz was still strong, like I say. The Zeppelin buzz was everywhere. I relate that buzz around 07, 08 to the same buzz that Zeppelin had around early to mid-90s when they did the Unleaded tour. But leading up to the Unleaded tour, they used to have a lot of specials and weekends dedicated to Zeppelin on MTV. And they would play like The Song Remains the Same, different interviews with the band, you know, the remaining members, you know, on solo projects and stuff. And they would put it all into a weekend. And I was totally glued to the TV. Loved it. Here's another one. Led Zeppelin Mojo. I got a lot of these from the 07 era. April of 09. That's a cool shot. Look at that hairdo on Jimmy Page, right? That was probably from 66, 67 when he first joined the Yardbirds. Oh, here's a cool one. 100 Greatest Guitarists of All Time. Eric Clapton on the front. That's pretty neat. So you can see I collected a lot of stuff in the early 90s, I guess, you know, through the 2000s as well. Acoustic. That's cool. Here you go. 100 greatest guitarists of all time. Look at that list. Just a few on the front. Who you got? Got Robert Johnson, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Hendrix, the Django Reinhardt, Ace Frehley, Jimmy Page, Chuck Berry. That's cool. What's that from? February of '97. Wow, that goes back a while. 15 years of guitar. 15 years of hot guitar. May '95. There's probably a bunch of different guys in here. Jimmy Page and Jack White. This was probably around the time that they came out with the movie It Might Get Loud, along with The Edge from U2. Those three guys did a documentary together. It's really, really good. I suggest you check that out if you like any of those guys. It's very interesting and informative. Anthrax guitar. That looks pretty old, just from the neon and stuff. July of '93. Never was a big Anthrax fan, but I mean, they got, okay, you got Zeppelin in here, Rage Against the Machine, Metallica, the day Cliff Burton died. I probably bought it for that reason too. I'm a big Metallica fan, love Metallica. Especially those first four, the first 4 or 5 Metallica albums. I mean, it as far as metal goes, you can't get much better than the first 3, 4, 5 Metallica albums. I'd say Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Injustice for All. Those three is like, that's the holy trinity of heavy metal. Straight up. I mean, it doesn't get too much better than that. You agree? Yes. Say yes. You do. Guitar player gods of the Telecaster. Albert Collins on the front. Pretty cool. Sure, there's a lot of guys in there. A lot of this stuff I forgot, you know, about what was inside, but I bought it for one reason or another. Led Zeppelin, The Story of 1969. Guitar World, Best and Loudest of 1998. That was what was happening in '98. A lot of alternative rock. Page and Plant's on there too. The Lost Interviews. Hendrix, Duane Allman, Jimmy Page from '77. This is November of '91. So I was heavy into it. I was, what, 18? 18 at the time I bought that. Jeff Beck. The incomparable Jeff Beck, who just passed away recently. Very, very sad, but he left us a legacy of guitar music for sure. Iron Maiden, one of my favorites. One dedicated straight up to Iron Maiden. What a great heavy metal band, Iron Maiden. Love them. Here you go. Rolling Stone, Dark Side of the Moon. Love me some Pink Floyd. Another favorite of mine. Anything with Pink Floyd, I'm on it. I'm on it. Guitar World. 100 greatest Metallica songs. Wow, they got a lot of songs. I never realized that. I mean, I know they got more than 100 now, but when did this come out? 2011. That looks like an interesting read. I'm gonna have to check that out again. That looks really good. The Ultimate Guide to the Music and Legend of Led Zeppelin. Oh wow. No words. Need I say more? Rush. Dedicated solely to Rush. There's some amazing pictures in here from what I remember. There's my boy right there. I mean, Alex Lifeson, right? How great is this guy? Amazing guitar player. Great rock guitarist and great progressive rock guitarist. There's nothing he couldn't play. He was bluesy. You know, he had some acoustic work. I mean, that guy is one of the greats. I'm going to do a video on him soon. Hint. Hint. Pink Floyd, The Wall. There's another one. That pig was probably from the '77 tour of Animals. I love that album. Pink Floyd Animals. That's probably my favorite Pink Floyd album. I say arguably. Depends on who I'm arguing with, but it's definitely one of my favorites. Here's another one with Alex Lifeson, White Zombie, Danzig, Sepultura, Tool, Frank Zappa. That's pretty good. That looks like an old one. February of 94. This one's kind of beat up. It's kind of falling apart. Maybe it was at the bottom of the pile for a long time and just got ripped up. Oh, this is neat. June of 92. Look at that. The Holy Trinity of English guitar players from the 60s. The Yardbirds. All three. Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page. I'm sure there's some good stuff in there. This one doesn't have a cover. Here's another Zeppelin. That's a pretty famous picture. Love that picture. They're getting down with it. Guitar World, exclusive Led Zeppelin, the BBC sessions. Where's this from? January of 98. You also have tablature for Dancing Days, Tool, Enema, and Green Day. And B.B. King. I used to love coming home and just browsing through and just reading all of this stuff. So fun. So fun. If you bought these magazines back in the day, especially, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Return of Led Zeppelin. Rolling Stone. That's another one from 07. So here you go. This is a Rush article that an editor in New Orleans wrote right after the concert in 2008. And so you'll only find this on, you know, the local paper. And as soon as I saw this come through and I read that, I said, oh man, I have to keep this. Especially because I went to this show the night before. So that was an amazing concert. And this guy, from what I remember, Keith Spira, he is a big-time Rush fan. So he wrote about it. It says, 24 years after they mesmerized a future music critic with their concert at Lakefront Arena, Rush is still rocking and relevant. That's cool. And this is from April 19th. And that's from New Orleans. So here you go. I'm going to finish my video with these. And you can see I just, like I say, I took some clippings out. But this is from Columbia House. These are the magazines that they would send in the mail. And you could read about all of these artists, these bands, these guitar players, or what have you. Right? And it would tell you some things about the albums that you're going to buy. See all that? Really, really cool stuff. It's that last page. You know, it would just tell you about the albums. Sex Pistols, Stone Temple Pilots. So for instance, it'd say, here you go, it's got Stone Temple Pilots, Tiny Music, Songs from the Vatican. Delivers hooks galore on the hits Big Bang Baby, Lady Picture Show, Tumble in the Rough, Tripping on a Hole. And the cassette is $4.39. Wow. No, I'm sorry, that's the CD. The CD is $4.39. It was $11.98. So they dropped down the price of these dramatically. So you can buy a bunch of these and then you would just pay for shipping and handling and everything. Van Halen, Zeppelin, Boston. So you would have little pictures of the albums and then a little bit of info about it. You know, they would list a few songs. And that's how you got your information back then. You know, they would send you these in the mail. And you'd look through them and you'd say, oh, that looks cool. I think I'll buy that. You know, and you had a option to buy either tape or CD. Hootie and the Blowfish. Look at the back. So, you know, this was how you found out a lot of things about people, about your bands. You would just browse through, and they would tell you things. There you go. Look at that. Black Sabbath. And what you got? You got Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, the first album, Paranoid, We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll. And it just tells you a history of them. And there you go. There's the picture. That might be the first picture you ever saw of Black Sabbath back in the day. Say, oh, that's what they look like. And then you'd read about them. Same thing with your magazines. So this stuff was really, really helpful and informative back late 80s, early 90s before internet. So that's my collection. I wanted to show y'all that. I've been kind of going through them in the past few weeks, and I said, I have to do a video about this. I've been meaning to do it for a while, so I'm glad I got that out of the way. But did you have any of these type of magazines back in that time period, or do you still collect them? For me, I really don't get them as much as I used to, but if something catches my eye and it's not just reprocessed stories, I'll go ahead and pick it up, and I'll keep it on my coffee table when people come over, or if I just want to read it. If I'm just sitting around late at night watching TV, I would rather just pick this up and just read stuff. Just kind of goes hand in hand with the whole music thing that you see. So there's my collection for you. I just want to do a little side video and just step away from my favorite guitarists and bands list. I know I've only done one video of that so far with my favorite guitarist, Jimmy Page. Next, I'll probably do my second favorite guitarist, and I have that lined up for this week, so I'll be posting that soon. Also, I've been posting some text messages on my channel with a little Today in Rock History, if y'all been catching on to that. And every day, I'll do some research, or I'll go through my magazines, or just off the top of my memory, I'll post just a few important things about, albums that were released on this day, or, this particular event happened on this day, like a major concert, or, something related to rock musicians, whether it be someone who died, someone who was born on that date. I'll keep that up every day. I plan to continue that no matter what. And I'll be posting another video soon. Y'all have a good rest of the weekend. And until next time, y'all keep rocking and stay safe.